Hi, my name is Stefan, and I'm going to tell you how you can deploy an application onto Lightsail. So, Amazon Lightsail is a service that's provided by AWS, which is like a platform as a service, as it helps you abstract the underlying technologies that are needed to run an application. So, they provide different services to jumpstart uh, the deployment process. So, it helps you to create an instance for you to host your web server. It also helps you to create containers very easily. It also allows you to do databases, create databases, load balancers, or even to manage storage such as S3 buckets. So it's very similar to how we also will create the other AWS services like EC2 instance, but instead of actually creating every configuration that's needed for an instance, basically AWS Lightsail helps you to hide those complex things and just makes it easier for you to just deploy and focus on your application itself. So let's say, for example, a business needs a WordPress site. So for this example, we're just going to go with GYG's example. And if you go to the official website, uh, this is actually using a PHP. It's running on PHP, and this is actually a WordPress website. So if you go to this, you can see that this is actually a WordPress site. Okay, let's go to the Australian one because uh, the US's one is quite secure, but when it comes to the WordPress site, which is hosted on the GYG's Australian server, it shows that this is running on a WordPress site. So I'm pretty sure both runs WordPress, but they're both running on different servers. So the one that's guzmanigomez.com is probably running or is pointing to a different load balancer with different EC2 instances, whereas this is probably pointing to the guzmangomez.com.au is probably pointing to a different load balancer. So this is probably done by CloudFront or Route 53. Because Route 53 allows you to do geolocation as a way of directing traffic based on the location. So as you can see, they're actually using WordPress. It's quite simple to use. However, I don't think that they have used Lightsail. It's much easier when it comes to using Lightsail. So there are some couple of advantages with Lightsail. One thing that stands out is that it's quite easy. It's very easy to set up, and the prices are actually much more cheaper if you were to run your own EC2 instances. And that's kind of weird because I did the calculations for when it comes to storage and all. So it says that for 5 GB of data or 100 GB of data, it only you only need to pay $3 every month, and it's actually the same price as managing your own S3 bucket or having your own S3 bucket with all the stuff. But uh, the one thing that's not included in my calculation was data transfers because it's very hard to predict. And so Lightsail provides you with 250 GB of free data transfers, which is quite important because data transfers do cost, especially when it's egress, meaning data is transferred out of AWS. And so this gives you 250 GB of free data, and that's actually very worth it when you think about pricing because it's much more flexible. You know what you are expecting, but if you were to maintain your own infrastructure like EC2 instances or anything like that, you have to account for data transfers, make your own calculations and all. But also we're going to check the instances for EC2 instances. They also provide you with different plans. Again, these plans mean that these are calculations for per month. So even though you use it for one day, you're not going to be charged for $5 or anything like that. You're only going to be charged for the amount that you use. So for example, this is going to be charged per hour on a per hour basis. So if you use for 24 hours, it's going to just calculate 1 out of 30 out of $5. So it's going to be way less than $5. And so basically this helps you manage your own infrastructure. It sets up the operating system very simple compared to setting up an EC2 instance and all. And it also helps you install like apps like WordPress, applications like WordPress, anything that you need to get started with. And so I don't think GYG's WordPress site uses Lightsail, but I do think uh, GYG's main website uses Lightsail mostly because it is a bit more protected, and usually the configurations provided when it started up, it usually matches the WordPress configuration of GYG's WordPress site that's stored on the guzmanecommerce.com. So we're just gonna run. We're just gonna start up a instance. We're gonna install WordPress. You could choose different other applications. You can also run Django. You can run PrestaShop. Django is a Python web server. It's a very complex Python web server. And there are other stuff like Node.js, PHP, and so for this, we're just going to see how we can set up a WordPress for a simple website, and maybe this could benefit businesses because technically it's just going to cost you $5. You don't need a huge instance to run a WordPress site. Again, it depends on how many visitors you get every month, and then we're just gonna ignore the launch scripts because we're not gonna need it. I have installed a SSH key. This means like to SSH into the instance that's provided by Lightsail. Again, this is technically not an EC2 instance. These are instances provided through the Lightsail interface. They're much different, and you can also create a custom key, very similar to how you would create a new private key for your EC2 instance, and then it allows you to download that private key. And you also can do automatic snapshots, which takes snapshots of the instance. Again, like how you would take AMI instances or create a new AMI. And then we will choose the plan. So again, we're just going to use a free plan. It says first 90 days are free for me. It might not be the same for you, but again, this is quite cheap and it's only charged on an hour basis. And again, it might say that you might need to choose $7 or anything other plans based on the performance and your application needs. So we're just going to stick with $5, and we're just going to call this WordPress and create an instance. So pretty much that's all you have to do when creating a Lightsail instance. It's quite simple. It helps you download the WordPress site. It helps you manage everything. You don't really need to create a VPC or anything. It just manages everything by itself. Helps you create a DNS, create an IP address for this, a public IP address for this instance. However, it is worth noting that since we don't have a load balancer yet, we only have a static IP address. And so if we were to reboot this, or if you were to stop this instance, and which I can show, if you stop this instance, the IP address might change. So it might affect the public IP address that needs to be stored when creating a DNS record. So actually, Lightsail has a way around it instead of rather than actually getting a load balancer, because load balancers are quite expensive, as you can see. They charge around $18 per month. You could create a load balancer, and then if you want to have 2 or more instances, a load balancer is very much needed if you want to distribute between 2 different or 3 different instances. But if you just wanna just one instance for your website, especially when it's just a simple WordPress site, you can attach a what we call an elastic IP, or what we call it's a static IP that does not change. So let's go to the WordPress site, and it'll give you the public IP address, and then we should be able to access the WordPress site. It does take some time for it to load, but yeah. So this is the home page of the WordPress site. So everything's set up. It's probably installing the latest WordPress, and then you can go to the admin portal by going here. So this is the admin portal. So to get the admin credentials, you go to this. It says user. You put here, and to get the password, it tells you to do a couple of steps. So you need to first open Cloud Shell, which basically means that you open the instance shell, basically SSHing into the instance. But Cloud Shell is much more easy because you're opening it through the browser instead of creating an SSH terminal. And it'll tell you to access it using Cloud Shell, and then it asks you to copy paste this. So we're going to copy this and copy and paste this. This should return us the password. Let's run this. It does take some time, and see, as you can see, we got a password. So that's the password that we're going to use for our admin portal. Let's see, this should grant us access to our admin portal, and the amazing thing about this is it creates its own MariaDB database, so you don't actually have to install it. It doesn't ask you to install it, set permissions, create a database. Everything's done for you, and so you can start you know developing your blog, or if you have your own WordPress site, you can just migrate it and then do a couple of changes. So this makes it much more easier, and it helps you get started as soon as possible. And so with WordPress, as most people know, you can pretty much configure, customize your website from here. I'm not going to focus on WordPress because WordPress is the application itself, and this is just to learn how we can actually deploy a WordPress site. And another thing that I want to focus is that usually the applications that's installed on the Lightsail instance is quite secure, because if you go to the htaccess file, some of the permissions are restricted, and that's a good thing. Like, for example, the htaccess is forbidden, which is supposed to be, but I doubt the .com.au. I'm not going to try it out. That's for you to do it, because that is something that I'm pretty sure they have not fixed. But if they were to fix, it's up to them. But again, this is what happens when you install your own WordPress site and if you don't configure it. But with Lightsail, I feel like they already provide you with a starting. They start you off in a good path. So that's actually to install WordPress. So if you don't want to just install WordPress, you could have installed PHP, and then I could have deployed my Laravel project, very similar to how I did before. And again, this provides you, the Amazon Lightsail provides you with an interface, a very clean interface with how to how to monitor your EC2 instance. It gives you snapshots, any storage. Again, this gives you 20 GB of storage. It has all this networking stuff. It allows you to have ports, very similar to how you have security groups, and it's very interesting. You can also have a load balancer. You could also have a cloud distribution. All services provided by Lightsail, which ultimately uses AWS infrastructure and services. They also have a thing called domain. Again, they help you to set up your own domain. You can register using AWS, or you can do it through how I did before, using Route 53. But yeah, this is how you can actually access your instance and start running. And again, if you want to make sure this remains the same, you can go to networks. There should be an option called static IP. So we can actually create a static IP and actually attach it. Again, this is up to you. You will actually, it does allow, it's actually free. Static IP addresses are free only while it's attached. So interestingly, that's actually free. So you can actually create an IP address that remains the same, attach it to an instance, and that won't change. So, but if you were to buy an elastic IP and then attach it, you have to pay for an elastic IP address. So that's to run an WordPress site. I'm just gonna close this instance because I no longer need it. Confirm. Let's get that deleted. Again, very simple. It's quite fast. There's the interface is quite smooth and everything. I think Amazon Lightsail is focused on making things much more simpler. It's just a more abstract version of Amazon Web Services as a whole. And we're just gonna also talk about containers, because in my last video I did talk about containers. Creating a cluster of containers using Amazon Elastic Container Services. So we're going to use Lightsail. It's quite simple. It's much more simpler than actually creating a cluster and then creating task definitions. We're going to use Nano, again, based on the thing. For Elastic Container Services, we had a load balancer, and same for instances. If we have multiple instances, we need a load balancer to distribute. For containers, we don't need that, and that's one of the things that I think is a good thing with Lightsail containers, because you can run applications very cheap for just around $7, $10 a month, and you can basically choose the scale. So if you want to run 2, 3, 4 containers all at once, and you want to distribute that across 4 containers, you can do so. And Lightsail containers manage the distribution of traffic without any cost. You just have to pay for each container. And also they also give you, data transfer fees. Everything's free, so it's definitely worth it, because it says for one, you get around 500 GB of data per month, which is definitely worth it. And then you can put your first deployment. uh, Again, if you want to go with the images, without images, basically the standard images, probably you can get this from Docker as well, Docker Hub. But if you want to go with these standard ones, the templates, or if you have your own image, then you can call this, let's call the same thing, the next container. And then we're going to use the same image that we used for the previous example. We'll call this next. And basically we don't need to have launch configuration commands or anything like that, and that's pretty much it. Then we want to make sure that this is publicly available. And we also open up ports. We need to make sure that we open up the port, or else it won't allow you to create a public endpoint. So the public endpoint is just giving you an IP address, and then it also does a health check as well. And that's pretty much it. So it's quite simple. It'll take some time for it to create, so we're just going to start as soon as possible. Again, it's going to be charging on an hourly basis, even though it says $7. $7 means that's the expected cost to run this service for a month. It could be more if your data transfers are more than the provided data transfer limits. And so it will take some time for it to load, but while it's been loaded, I'm just going to show you other services that you can do with Lightsail. Again, it helps you abstract many of the things that you would do to create a database. Like, for example, I don't think you can create Aurora DB databases, I'm not sure, but these are all very small instances, very low powered instances. So you can actually run a MySQL database. Again, it's going to cost you $15. These are actually cheaper compared to the ones provided by RDS. I'm not sure how they do that. And they also provide you with data transfer. That's honestly a good thing, because if you wanna minimize your cost and keep it simple as possible, then Lightsail is the best. They also have high availability, which means you're running 2 database instances, and that's why the cost just doubles. And again, the different database, I'm pretty sure you can rename your database. There should be an option for you to specify the login details, which is like the password, and very similar to how you would do it, but way more simpler than actually creating your RDS. And then they also have the bucket, the disk, similar to EBS. They also have domain, linking domains. It just avoids you from using different services like AWS Route 53. And that's pretty much it when it comes to using Lightsail. Let's just go to the container and see how it's doing so far. You can always change if you want to modify your deployment. You don't have to delete it, you can just do modify, but that's only once it's up and running. So it's still deploying. It'll take 5 to 7 steps, and once it's done, you can actually get the public IP. It wouldn't be working because it does take some time for it to run, but I'm just trying to show how, compared to running it on ECS and also running it on Lightsail, which is cheaper, how fast it is. And something that you need to remember is that with Lightsail, you don't have many options of choosing what kind of instance you want. They do have a standard of T micro or T nano. Basically, these are very, very small instances. So if you want to have a customized AMI, or if you want to have a customized instance, and you want to have vertical scaling, which means increasing the EC2 hardware, such as memory, of getting an instance that's more suitable for computing or for running big AI models, then this is definitely not where you want to be. And because you don't have much of a choice, you just want to run a simple website, a simple application, a simple batch process. Yes, this is Amazon Lightsail does a lot of things for you. We'll see if this is up and running. And so it's actually running. If you go to this, it would probably say it's running. It's probably going to say it's healthy. And you also can, again, link the domain. You can also do it using Route 53 using this domain here. That's one of the interesting things, because now we don't have an IP address, and this is going to be same. This is always going to be the same. So that's one of the amazing things about using Lightsail containers. So that's pretty much it. The website's running up and running. I can access it using this. This is using the same image that I deployed before, SSSR server-side rendering website. And that's pretty much it when it comes to Lightsail. So hope this benefits you.